Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to another Ludden Conversation. I'm Kathy Gilhenny. I'm the Director of Development here at Bishop Ludden Junior Senior High School. And I'm joined by Bob Bachman, an alum from the class of 1969. And Bob is also a member of the 1969 basketball team, the Green Machine. This team was recently named to the inaugural class of Bishop Ludden's Hall of Fame. Bob's retired. His position before retirement was CEO of Emory University Hospital in Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome, Bob.
Nice to be with you, Kathy. A little struggled to get there, but we've connected.
We had some a few technology issues, but we got them resolved.
Yes.
Very happy about that. So, Bob, could you tell us a little bit about your path from a Ludden student through college and then into your professional career? What was your path?
My path was sort of a circuitous path, and it's a long story, but I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version, which will be like that. So at Bishop Ludden, I had an interest in healthcare. I sort of in the back of my mind harbored the idea of going on to be a physician. But as I began to sort of size things up, I didn't have the patience for 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, and 3 or 4 years of residency. So I ended up going to a program at Upstate Medical Center. Back then it was called inhalation therapy. Today it is known as respiratory therapy. It was a 2-year degree. And I learned a lot, and it really got my juices going for healthcare. After I left Upstate Medical Center, I went to Duke University Medical Center and worked there for a year. I was probably the only Irish Catholic kid in Durham, North Carolina at that time. And I learned a lot at Duke, but I decided at that point I wanted something a little different, maybe a bigger city and so on, and a bigger hospital. Ended up going to Atlanta. I looked at a couple of hospitals in New York City, went to Atlanta where I worked in a couple of hospitals and had the opportunity to be mentored by the CEO actually of the hospital, one of the hospitals I ended up at. And he was very, very helpful. Took a lot of time to help groom me. And ever since, I have valued the role of being a mentor and have looked for opportunities to get with people so I could be their mentor. In any event, I finished my undergraduate degree, finally, long time in coming. It was a business management and economics degree. My mentor, as it turned out, he would invite me down to his office one day and ask me if I would mind leaving respiratory therapy and going into hospital administration, which I just took a big leap at. I thought it was a great opportunity. And I did that for about 10 years. Make a very long story short, and it's probably too long as it is, I ended up getting recruited by the dean of the Emory University School of Medicine to work in the medical school. Sort of a unique opportunity. I was the director of graduate medical education, which was the office where 1,000 residents and interns and fellows passed through. Worked with that for about 5 or 6 years. I got recruited back to the hospital setting at Emory University Hospital, the flagship hospital, and so that was about 22 years ago or so. And when I got recruited out of medical school back to the hospital, I started first as chief operating officer and then was fortunate and privileged enough to be named CEO of that hospital along with several other hospitals. So it was a long path and it was lots of twists and turns, but it all worked out really very, very well.
Congratulations. Sounds like an exciting career path, and you learned a lot on the job.
A lot.
Which is how most of us, I don't know, that's how I learned most of my skills, you know.
It's lifelong learning. You learn
Yes.
every day.
Yes. Excellent. Can you give us an idea about what you appreciate about your Ludden experience and how it influenced your career path?
A couple things with that, Kathy. First, the people, and then the school itself. And let me talk a little bit about people. The faculty had a great deal of influence on me. Now, my family lived in Eastwood at the time, which is a pretty good distance from Ludden, and it was a couple of bus rides and so on and so forth. But the faculty made it worthwhile. Father Sheehan and Terry Quigley and Dave Didio and so many others I can think of had a very positive influence on me. They took interest in me as a person, as a student, helped motivate me, and probably on occasion whack me in the side of the head. So the people certainly were instrumental in all of that. The other item is I call Bishop Ludden the Goldilocks school. Wasn't too big, wasn't too small. For me, it was just right. High schools, more now than certainly back then, some high schools have 2,000, 3,000 students, but Bishop Ludden was big enough to have a solid academic program, big enough to have a really solid sports athletic program, but small enough where the teachers cared. So it was just right. It was a good fit for me.
That's fantastic. I like your Goldilocks
Yeah.
school. We may use that if that's okay with you.
You bet.
Because it's still the case, I think, and that's how it was for me. Because I graduated in 1980. It was the right size, which I would have gotten lost in a bigger school, I think. And that was my thing for college as well. I picked a smaller school because for my personality, I just needed a little bit smaller. So,
right.
And the community is still a community. It's pretty special place.
Yep, I'm sure.
So how do you draw on the values that were emphasized at Ludden? How have you through your career and now?
Looking at the teachers, the environment, the culture that we were in, while I probably didn't really appreciate it at that time, with 5 decades later, I really appreciate and understand the value that that experience gave me at Bishop Ludden. The role models that I had in the faculty, I learned respect and dignity. I had my character certainly molded by the faculty and by the whole environment. So those were some of the takeaways, that it was a stepping stone. Ludden was the first step. It was the foundation. And then it just sort of worked up from there through college and through my career. Those values, respect and dignity and honesty, were those values I learned and I carried through my whole life.
That's fantastic. That's what we hope happens with all our students. If we could all learn those values and follow them.
Yeah, that's right.
That would make the world a better place, right? That's our goal.
Good, should be.
Bob, talking about COVID and with you being in the health field, I know you're retired now, but what was your biggest challenge during COVID? And I know you shared with me you had an experience, and I'll let you talk about it, with Ebola as well when you were working. But your biggest challenge with the COVID and how you deal with it, and what do you have advice for the rest of us?
COVID has obviously changed the world as we know it. And I think it's what has affected all of us is the separation that we all experience, separation from friends, from family, from church, from life. It's been an adjustment, and it's an adjustment that all of us have had to sort of grapple with. I am so grateful with all the challenges I had professionally coming along through Emory University Hospital. I'm fortunate, I guess, not to be involved in that today. I cannot imagine. In fact, I wrote an email to a colleague last night, one of the surgeons, and I told him that he has my greatest admiration. I said, I cannot imagine the difficulty, the stresses, the pressure, the whole healthcare community must experience through COVID. So, we're going to get through it, but it's been tough. And the interesting thing, so my father was born in 1916. And you know what happened in 1918? The Spanish flu,
Right.
which took my grandfather's life. And if you go to Woodlawn Cemetery in Eastwood, there's a whole bunch of people who passed away from the Spanish flu that are buried in Woodlawn. Anyway, it's sort of interesting. My grandfather was in the Spanish flu. I'm in COVID, and enough of all of these pandemics.
Yeah, for sure. So with all our stresses and challenges and all that, what are you most optimistic about?
That we have a new president. So I'm sort of grounded in science. I need to be able to measure, monitor, and manage systems and processes, right? And I believe in science. And our new president believes in science. So since I'm a science guy, I'm sort of optimistic that we will get through COVID. It's been very bumpy with the vaccinations, as we all know. But I believe there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I am very optimistic. And I think, maybe a year from now, we'll sort of all look back and reflect on how did we get through it? How did we get to that point, and how did we get through it? So I guess that's probably my most optimistic point right now.
What do you think about the development of the vaccine so quickly? Do you find that amazing?
I think you need to understand the science. Most vaccines have a little bit of the virus as part of the vaccine. And that's why it takes years and years and years to develop. This is a whole new technology. What Moderna is doing, and Moderna, a big piece of Moderna was developed at Emory, coincidentally, and with Pfizer. So they're using the mRNA technology for this vaccine. So am I surprised that it was developed as rapidly as it was? A little bit, but it also shows that once you make a national commitment, you can move the world. If everybody holds hands and pushes the science forward and makes it a national priority, you can do anything. And that's really what started out last February, March, whenever they started development of it. So I'm not surprised. It's a good thing. My concern is we're going to need boosters probably every year moving forward on this. It's not going away.
Similar to the flu shot, right?
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Good. So what message would you give to our current students?
I guess a message that I would share with the students, both in the junior high level and at the high school, is you won't appreciate what you have today until you get out, until you reflect on and get a few years under your belt. I would suggest that the students today with the support of their parents and the faculty. You've got to have both. You've got to have the right environment at home, complemented by the environment in the school. The students need to understand this is but the first step. High school is but the first step of lifelong learning. The next step is going to be college. The next step is going to be this and that, so on and so forth. And they need to understand that it never ends. Education and learning never ends. And that's the beauty of it. I guess if I would have a message to the students, I would give them this message. And it's summarized in 5 words, each beginning with the letter C. And that would be communication, coordination, collaboration, cooperation, and commitment. And you can add in a 6th C if you want to, but we'll look at those 5. If the students start to take apart those 5 C's, communication, what does it mean? It means listening. How well do you listen? How well do you communicate to your parents, to your colleagues? Collaboration. How do you collaborate on the ball field, on the basketball court, in study teams? Each of those different words means a little bit different. And if you expand each of those words' definitions and what they mean in application, it really is an interesting tool moving forward. And the last C, commitment, is committing to those other 4 C's: communication, coordination, collaboration, and cooperation. It all comes together, and those attributes expressed in those 5 C's really needs to start in high school and then develop as the students go on in college and beyond. So I don't know if that's a message or a lecture.
I think that was marvelous. That was very profound. I don't know if you've seen our new value statement. It's where character, commitment, and community come together in a school for all.
Yes.
So kind of fits in with what you were saying too.
Yes, I think so. Yep.
That was very profound, Bob. I'm impressed. Now,
I got to show you one thing.
okay.
Ready? Oops, wait a minute. I don't know if you can see that or not.
Yeah, hold it up a little bit higher. Perfect. Is that you?
Who is that? I had to get my yearbook out. That was me at Nottingham High School in probably, I can't even begin to tell you the month. Anyway.
That's fantastic. See, there's proof he was on the green machine.
There you go.
That's great. Now, do you have a message for alums?
Support your high school. My kids, I've got 2, a 30-year-old son and a 27, 28-year-old daughter. And they went to a school that's called St. Pius X here in Atlanta. And when they were ready for high school, I tried to find a Bishop Ludden-esque school, and I found it in St. Pius. And we've been very involved in that school because of my kids. My kids were very active, and so my wife and I have been on lots of committees. It comes down to valuing your education, where you come from, your roots, and putting up some time, some resources, support the school. Good education is just invaluable.
The reason I'm working at Ludden now is to try to pay it back. I'm very fortunate for the experience I had, and I want other students, kids to have that experience.
That's a good way to put it.
I always say education is your ticket, you know?
That's exactly right.
So, well, Bob, I really appreciate it. Is there anything else you would like to say?
I appreciate the opportunity to spend this time with you to talk about Bishop Ludden, and it's sort of a privilege just to be even considered for Ludden Conversations. It's sort of neat.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. And I hope you get to golf. We have 2 feet of snow about.
Oh, it's about 48 and a little gray, but no snow. That's why I'm here and not up there.
Thanks, Bob.